Hello again, hope you're all doing well. As you can tell, it's like a casual Friday sort of video. And if you watch these solely for the case law, well, tune in next week because today is all about Rule 8.4J, which goes into effect in 2024. The amended rule prohibits lawyers from harassing or discriminating based on race, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity, gender expression. Oh man, Hal, what's gender expression?
If I say anything, Dave, I'll get canceled.
Well, I guess the question should be, who isn't on the list? It reads like a participation trophy. Everybody's a protected class now. Before I trigger more of you, let's just stop and cover the guts of the rule. It prohibits harassment and discrimination, but those have unique definitions. They're tucked away in comments 3, 3A, and 3B. Basically, if you do or say anything that someone finds offensive, it's probably game over because the rule doesn't require an injured party, just someone who's willing to report you. I'll give you an easy example here. Let's say I'm a complete and total idiotic moron, and I decide to send a lawyer at my firm this hugely anti-Semitic email, and that person's not even Jewish. That's still a violation under 8.4J. On that same token, if I were to publicly insult, let's say in the hallway of my law firm, rich people, and everyone that worked at my law firm was a bunch of poor paupers because I underpaid everybody, that's still a violation. And when you cross-reference this with the Illinois Human Rights Act that already outlaws discrimination in Illinois, whether it's a law firm or McDonald's, you end up with 5 new protected classes. 2 of these, in my view, are minefields that would make Orwell jealous. First example, gender identities, which this smart-sounding magazine says number about 72. And gender expression. I went on Google to find out what in the world this was, and I found this video. I ain't gonna say it, but it appears the ISBA feels that this should be part of that protected class as well. Which brings me to my next question. Is this even needed? The ARDC can disbar a ham sandwich, and here's some easy examples. You have Robert Lewin, the guy who was creeping all over the staff at the Will County Law Library. Matthew Peak told a female attorney and her paralegal to and even former state's attorney Charles Gennardi was disciplined for this during closing arguments. So why are we changing this rule? Well, because the law firm environment has changed radically in the last decade. It has gone full Hunger Games, with many ending up working at what I like to call legal sweatshops. 2 lawyers who live this firsthand helped me with today's video. Amir, he's a former associate in Chicago, and Yolanda, who works in Boston. Now, some of what I'm about to share has been watered down a bit to protect their identities. What shocked me, aside from like the low pay, was the working conditions. They weren't even in average offices. Amir was at a glorified warehouse with no air conditioning. Yolanda in the basement of a building where the plumbing would like occasionally back up and make the place smell like sewage. So what does all this have to do with 8.4J? Simple, bullying behavior. Yolanda gave me an example. Last year, one of her coworkers was late because her car was broken into. So the boss screams at her when she made it into the office and did this in front of everybody. And it gets worse. The coworker then just kind of walks off the job and the firm blackballs her. Every place she's applied to since has been a dead end. So I asked them, if having a rule like this, which makes it unethical to say really anything unpleasant at work, would make their job easier, and both pointed out that they already had an HR department that sort of looked the other way. In their view, this was really less about ethics and more about a lack of respect. As Amir said, this ain't Kirkland Ellis. And he's right, the lawyers at these firms don't have juice, because if they did, they wouldn't be working a job that pays $19 over minimum wage. Yeah, the pay at many of these places is really embarrassing, and it's becoming more common as these big box firms pop out and price out their competition, making the impact on wages self-evident. When lawyers are cheap and replaceable, it's only natural they'll be treated no better than, say, the people who slave away at the Amazon warehouse. But to be fair, I do agree with the ISBA that this rule will help firms keep costs in line, that is, because the rules also require employers babysit their lawyers, and if one gets out of line, well, they have to be 86th. So let's say the firm has a payroll issue. The issue is a few of their associates are a couple months away from vesting, and it would be cheaper to replace them with fresh meat. Yes, you could 86 them for made-up reasons, but when you have a rule that applies to anything that happened in the office, a CLE, or as the comment notes, a social function like the company barbecue, it's simply safer to use that, argue it violates 8.4J, and replace with cheaper labor. Now I know some of you in the peanut gallery disagree. Oh, wait. Did I just say something racist? Because in the 1800s, the peanut gallery was a place where immigrants and people of color sat during vaudeville shows. But it was also a reference to the Howdy Doody show of the 1950s, which had nothing to do with race. Which objective standard are you going to hold me to with that comment if I were to say it in, let's say, in a law firm environment? Did I just violate Rule 8.4J or not? And that'll now be HR's unfettered call for the tens of thousands of underpaid lawyers working at these mills. And I'm sure in no way will it be misused. So theatrics aside, let's just get real. The ARDC didn't need this rule. The only people that are going to benefit will be firms that want to streamline layoffs without having to pay benefits. And we haven't even gotten to the other shenanigans. That GAL report hurt the feelings of someone on this participation trophy list. Well, now they have an excuse to subpoena that lawyer's social media accounts or whatever else to make sure they never committed thought crime.
Do you mind taking a look at that? Yeah! Oh, yeah!
You gotta feel bad for Amir, Yolanda, and the tens of thousands of lawyers trapped at these sweatshops. Unfortunately, it seems Rule 8.4J is sort of a classic example of policymakers acting with their heart and not with their heads. Anyways, I think I've made enough friends with this video. Let me get off my soapbox. We'll be back next week with a quick one on Rule 137 sanctions. As always, until then, thanks for watching. But I better be hit.